This is a case study of a client that I worked with a few years back that we'll just call her a home-based entrepreneur for the time being, and you'll see why I do that in a minute. She came to me with a number of questions about how to get her financial house in order, and so we went through this exercise and came up with a plan for her. As I said, she was a home-based entrepreneur. She worked in advertising, copywriting, blogging, some sales, advertising sales as well. She is single, 30 years old. Her main goal was to finish paying off her student debt, save for a down payment, and get some long-term growth. She had $24,000 in a student loan. She was leasing a car at $330 per month, and she had $10,000 invested in a high interest savings account at the bank, also allocated as a TFSA. It's important to note here that that TFSA was in, as I say, a high interest savings account, and bank interest is peanuts when you really get down to it. Even at a so-called high interest account, she was lucky to get around 2% on her money. And today it's even worse, but at the time inflation was running around 2.5%. So she was actually losing on that investment. And nowadays, as we know, that inflation has gotten even higher, and so a TFSA, or so-called high interest savings account at the bank, is really not a good investment at all. So we took a look at where she was at. Her average after-tax income was about $3,500 a month. Her average expenses, excluding the car and student loan, was around $2,600. She was paying about $223 a month on her student loan. As I mentioned earlier, the car lease was about $330, which gave us a total expense of about $3,153 and a disposable income of around $347 per month. So the first thing we did was a zero-based budget. Some people refer to it as a reverse budget. It's a very simple tool that helps people see where your money goes and take control of your spending. You spend every dollar on paper before the month begins, and then throughout the month do not deviate from that plan. And by simply being aware of the little leaks in your spending, the average consumer can cut anywhere from 5 to 10% of their expenses. In this case, by following this process, Jessica was able to find about an extra $100 per month, some months even more. So once we knew what our budget was, we took step two, which is usually a 50-50 cover yourself and investment plan. In most cases, the way I do it. So we had a total surplus of $447 per month. And the first thing for covering yourself is life insurance. Sometimes it's critical illness insurance. In this case, we looked at a $25,000 life insurance policy, which is enough to cover the average funeral, burial plot, cremation, all of those things, and leave a little bit of a surplus left over for the people and causes that you care about, maybe to clear a few debts, that kind of thing. The cost was only $36.29 per month. Life insurance is always cheapest when you're younger, so it's one of those things that you want to get soon if you don't have it already. Then we looked at 50% of the surplus and put it on debt, and the other 50% and put it on savings. By doing that, we were able to bump up her student debt repayment to $410 per month and shave 5 years of payments off of that debt plan, and save a total of $1,500 in interest. Step three was savings, where we took her existing $10,000 that she had already saved and split it into two different funds. One less risky than the other to hedge a little bit, and she was able to increase her investment take over the course of the time that I worked with her, to the point where she was almost in a position to make a down payment on a home. So again, we were $224 per month into the existing TFSA for 5 years. The other $224 was added to the debt, the student loan, and then after the 5 years, we were able to put the full amount plus the amount that she was paying to student loans into the TFSA. So we bumped it up to $671 per month. Half of it went into an aggressive allocation fund, which was returning about 6%, and the other half of it went into a foreign equity fund, which was even more volatile, but even more high return at about 17.5%. After 5 years, as we said, she had just under $31,000, and is currently projected to have $93,000 sitting in there in 5 more years. So step 4 was the house. After 5 years, and this was just recently that we went through this process, about a year and a bit ago, we had a decision to make. We could take out a down payment for a condo, essentially. The max purchase price that she could have afforded was around $300,000. So that was condo in this market at the time, and would create a mortgage payment of $1,403 and reduce the long-term investment prospect for the next 10 years down to about $50,000. Her current rent payment is $1,380, so the mortgage payment's not going to change, or wasn't going to change her overall situation all that much, and she would still be able to pump that $670 per month into the investment account after the house was purchased. So the decision came down to, did she want to buy a condo, or did she want to wait and continue to build up the nest egg for future purchases? And at this point, she has decided to kind of stand pat until things, or until her circumstances change again, or until she gets enough money sitting there that she can do a down payment on a fully detached house. And as we know, the real estate markets have gone nuts in the last couple of years. So that was a good long-term decision as far as I'm concerned. So lastly, just the final budget that we ended up settling on for her after all of these discussions was life insurance, as we said, about $36.29 per month. We cranked $224 into the additional debt payment for the first 5 years and $224 into savings, and then we combined it all into one after that. The total budget for this was $484.29, which was still a little bit more than she initially thought she could afford. After we went through the zero-based budget, we were at $447, as you know. But again, once she saw the value of what I was proposing, was able to go back to the zero-based budget and make a few tweaks here and there, and get it to the point where she felt comfortable with that bill of $484, especially knowing that it was going to clear her student loans so much faster. So that was how we worked this out, and I often have these kinds of discussions with people who work for themselves, work from home, contract jobs, those kinds of things. So if it's if this is you, or someone you know, or you can identify with any of these scenarios, feel free to reach out, and we can go through a similar process and find a plan that works for you. Have a great day.